All right, guys. So still on the road. Another conversation I want to have with myself, but you guys can listen into it. And this is the idea of success. And the thing is, a lot of people, especially online, people are always gravitating towards content over like how to make money, how to be successful. And, I really kind of dove into this idea a long time ago before I wrote the book. And that was kind of the premise of why I started writing the Four Keys. But in retrospect, and now with current knowledge, I think I have the answer of why success is hard, but also why success is easy. So, in a couple different points, and I want to look at it in a spiritual context, a religious context, and a non-religious, because we kind of have to, because it makes sense in both lights. So, in my view, success right now, since success has to do with status in our current society, it's literally all about status, and a lot to do with status has to do with money. So when I say the word success, it's really translating a lot of it towards money and making money. And the real issue I feel, and it's I've been privileged to have the opportunity to work with hundreds, probably even thousands of business owners just from the line of work that I did. And people with $100 in the bank and $100 million in the bank. So I've seen the gamut of people across the board, and you really start to see patterns. So I think this is kind of an eye opener. What do you see this? And then what struggles they had, what things that they didn't struggle with. And I think it comes down to this kind of core concept, which is, people say it's about hard work, determination, finding your purpose, or like having a system, following these things. Yes, those are all the practical ideas of it. And, as a lot of it has to do with manifestation. That's what I truly believe. And I think it's, 80% of it has to do with alignment. But it's alignment with what? And why is it difficult to align things to make things manifest in your life? And here is the issue, that it's really a spiritual war. It's a spiritual war that we're fighting. It's who are you worshiping is really the question, which is, I know, kind of a deep way to look at it. But if you actually look at the world that we're living in, it's very, very clear. It's becoming clear, especially now. So there's a lot of ancient scripture, a lot of talk about the earth being hell. And if you watch some of my other videos, I truly believe that may be the truth, that hell is actually the place where suffering can occur. Hell doesn't mean that it's eternal suffering, because we are here for a very short time. But we require this experience to be able to understand the goodness and the light. But besides all that, if hell is earth, then the king of hell, or the god of earth, is the devil. So if you want to rule the earth, then you must worship the devil. I mean, that sounds kind of crazy, but if you look at society and what's happening, it's like, oh, maybe that there's some truth to that, right? But instead of looking at so extreme, we should look at kind of the nuanced idea of this, right? So in what I've learned, where you place your focus, where you place your energy of truth, and if you're kind of like, what the hell is he talking about? Watch some of my other videos about truth and alignment, and then it might make more sense. But a truth is basically an energy or some sort of thought or idea or something that's in your brain. One of the things in your matrix of your brain that doesn't have the negative energy of doubt or uncertainty. So a truth is just something that's that. It's like 1 + 1. There's no negative thought about it. I know it's 2, right? That kind of thing is your truth, but your truth creates your reality. So the thing is, if you have a truth Your truth is aligned with exactly where you want to go and your purpose and what you want. Essentially, the way that I manifest and the way I manifest is by showing spiritual gratitude to my higher power, and in my case, into God. If I align my purpose is why he put me on this planet with a calling is something that has been put into my view that I can apply it to. Whatever truth that I put in line with it, that I know that I need in order to fulfill, then God's provides it to me. It's pretty incredible. If that's money, if that's relationships, if that's different opportunities, it kind of appears out of nowhere. And if you know the formula, it's pretty amazing. But that being said, unfortunately, it seems to work also with the God of this world, with the devil. That if you were to align everything with spiritual gratitude for the devil, which means that you have a straight alignment with wanting power on this planet, which is money and power, fame, whatever it may be. If that is the end goal, but you have the worship of money, then you can manifest. It becomes your reality. Money becomes your reality, opportunity becomes your reality, power becomes your reality. And as it becomes a truth, it becomes your reality. And the Bible warns us about this. It warns us that that will happen, that you can find riches by worshiping these false gods. But in the long term, you will be denied to go to heaven. And a way you can look at that is that you'll be miserable. You won't be spiritually fulfilled. And when you're on your deathbed, you will have regrets. And depending on what you believe, some people believe that you're reincarnated on this planet again if you have failed to figure out life on this planet. But you will retain your soul and go to a higher place if you have figured it out. So that's why this may be hell. You're perpetually coming back, reincarnated or coming back or staying on this planet. That's just, some beliefs, whatever you may believe. But the end thing to understand is that if you push your worship onto money, your worship onto power, you create the energy of truth and leave the uncertainty, that will become your reality. You can become wealthy. But from the people that I've met, why I even wrote the book in the first place is because a lot of these people who did that, who found success, were miserable. So that's what messed me up completely. And that's why I wrote the book, because if this wasn't it, this wasn't what's bringing us long-term fulfillment and happiness, then why even do it? Because we're in a society of lack. People want stuff. I want to buy this cool stuff. I want to date that hot woman. I want to have power. I want people to envy me. But once you get it, it's very lonely. They've specifically told me this lesson, that once you can buy whatever you want, it gets kind of boring. It does. I remember the first time I made a ton of money when I was in the mortgage business, the first time, and I walked into a store. I was like, dude, I could buy pretty much anything in here. I walked out with nothing because I didn't really know what I wanted. It's different when you don't have. The grass is always greener, and then when you have it, it's like, I don't know. What should I get? I don't know. Nothing's really doing it for me. So there's some truth to that. It's hard to envision when you are struggling, right? But there's a difference from struggling, thriving, and then having whatever you want. But that being said, the Bible also says, and Jesus also says, again, context, is that there's nothing wrong with having abundance as long as it's not what you worship. So the problem is that a lot of people believe and understand that if you want to be rich, you need to worship money like a god. You need to give your spiritual gratitude to Satan to give you that power. But that's a little extreme, right? So a lot of people's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not a Satan worshiper, so I'm not going to do that. So they're in the middle, right? The complete flip side is to give yourself to God and to be like Jesus, which, if you know the story of Jesus, he didn't have any money, and he actually tried to do things without money with the help of the people. So that's a completely different place. Like do I want to feel spiritually fulfilled but then broke and powerless on this planet, right? That's kind of the envisionment. I mean, it shouldn't be like that, but that's kind of how it is. That if I want the private jets, I'm not going to be like Jesus. That's not being like Jesus, so I can't have that. If I want the private jets, am I a Satan worshiper? This may all sound like crazy town, but I mean, look at all the talk about all these people, these CEOs, these people that have these like theories of Satan worshiping, and it makes sense, because if you worship that idea and you embody that as a truth, it will manifest in your life. You can manifest more money. You can manifest more power. You can be kings on this planet if you do that. But at what cost? Your soul is being sold, right? So that's the dilemma. The difficulty is that there's when you're in the middle ground, you're getting crushed by both sides. You have nowhere to go when you can't commit to one side. Like, I don't want to give up everything because, I want to have stuff in this life. I want to have an abundant life. But I don't want to be a Satan worshiper, and I don't want to be somebody who just is a philanthropist my whole life and gets nothing in return. And that's kind of I believe, the battle that's happening in the world. People spiritually, they have a core foundation and understanding of the spiritual desires, and they understand typical right and wrong. But that idea is pretty strong, so it's hard to combat that. And then the other reason too is people. And this also has a lot to do with looking at it in that religious lens. But, when you deal with lots of money, when you deal with making a ton of money, people are classified into almost like two different categories. It's like sheep and shepherds. There are those who are the sheep, which there's millions and millions upon millions and billions of sheep. And then there's a small collection of shepherds that are leading them into certain directions. So the thing is, it's crazy. Like, the people I talk to that run these huge companies, some of them, when they envision people like their employees, they don't look at them as individuals, as people with souls, but rather almost like sheep, like assets. These are assets. And when looking at their customer base, the millions of people, they're looking at them in the lens of a big bunch of sheep that will follow certain commands. Hey, if I do this, they'll turn left. If I do this, they'll turn right. And it's true, because if you're a consumer and you don't have this understanding, you're basically a sheep. You're being dictated by those who understand how to control you, make you buy things, make you follow certain rules, and that creates the wealth. That creates the opportunity. And the difficult part about that is, at our core, if you don't have the inclination towards the power and the money and the evil, and I just to be clear, people may definitely are worshiping money, worshiping that side of it, but not putting it together that it's the devil. So they don't believe that they're devil worshipers. They don't believe that they're worshiping Satan. But in this light, it's satanic belief. It's worshiping money. But they don't realize that. So if you tell them, hey, you're a devil worshiper, they're like, what are you talking about, right? But and that's the thing. But it's not all of them. It's some of them, right? And it's some of them who look at people like sheep. And the thing is, it's kind of easy to make money if you think of it that way. If you think of the masses, because it's true, the majority of people are programmable, the majority of programming are suggestible, and especially with the power of social media, you can get in front of millions of people and pay some money with some ads and shift them in certain directions with repetition, and then get them to buy or do a certain thing that you want them to do. It's done every day, and it's not rocket science if you understand this stuff. But it's really the mentality of thinking that way, that these are all sheep that will do it. Yes, there are some shepherds. Those shepherds, hey, we'll hire them or we'll bring them on, whatever. They're probably not going to buy from us, but there's a ton of sheep out there that will. So that mentality too is tough for people to grasp, because a lot of people have the inner desire to see people for people. They have a value for people. They want to help people. They want to connect with people, not assets, not sheep. And unfortunately, that's what stops a lot of people from making a ton of money. So this sounds all grim and bad, right? But here's the silver lining, is that Jesus did say that it's abundance is fine. There's nothing wrong with abundance. You can have abundance. You can have the rich life. You can have the luxury cars and the private jets. It's okay, as long as your worship does not have to do with worshiping the devil, with putting money on a pedestal. So the ones that are doing it right, money is a byproduct. They have a purpose. They solved a problem. Money is a byproduct of that, right? The mentality is different than going after money and power. And a way you can manifest this, in the way I've manifested money, is by aligning it with your purpose. So that's the hack. That's the hack. Because if you want to have a long-term fulfilling life, if you want to be happy with yourself, if you want to have a soul that you're proud of, that you're happy with, if you still want to have the people around you connect with you for reasons other than just your money and your power, because that's what messes people up. Because when they realize that the connections they've made, the people that look up to them, has nothing to do with them, it was just the money and power, which on your deathbed means nothing, it kills them. That means they didn't figure it out, right? So in order to figure it out, you need to find a way to do both. You can't be in the middle ground of maybe I'll go towards my higher power and follow God, or maybe I'll go towards the devil. I don't like either of them. I'm going to stay in the middle. And the middle is Sheepsville. You're the sheep, right? The middle is where the sheep live. So if you don't want to be a sheep, and again, if shepherds of men, right? I don't think it's bad to be a sheep. It's not the end of the world if you're a sheep. But if you're watching a video like this, you most likely don't want to be a sheep. You most likely want to ascend to something else. So the hack is to actually go towards the light, your higher power, to embrace that, to give yourself up to your higher power. But you can still have abundance if you align it right. That's the hack. That's the hack. You've been given a gift, a crazy gift, and it's been hidden from you, because if everybody knew they had this gift, then who the heck is going to have a job taking out the trash or cleaning the floors or whatever. It doesn't work for the current structure of society. It doesn't work. So here's the hack. All you need to do is follow what you were put here to do. God gave you a purpose. Once you understand your purpose, and I promise you, once you figure out your purpose, and there's a formula to do this, once you figure it out, there will be signs that will be sent to you, and it will be very bright and obvious. And that's your calling. And callings can change. Different seasons of your life, different times of your life, different things that are going on around you. There's different callings that happen. But that purpose of what you're supposed to do remains the same. How you use what you have to fulfill these callings. So as long as you know your purpose, you're doing your job here on this planet, and you are recognizing these callings, you will be provided with whatever you need to make that happen. That's really it. That's the secret. God and the universe, whatever you want to call it, God will give you what you need to fulfill your purpose and fulfill your calling. So, the way you need to do this, because there's so much negative programming going on that's stopping you to do this, you need to get rid of that negative programming, get rid of the negative feelings of doubt, uncertainty, make it a truth that I need this. So say, I need $100,000 in order to do this because of this, and you truly believe it without the negative energy. That's the trick. Because what is negative energy? Negative energy that we're talking about is just doubt. It's just uncertainty. It's maybe the feeling that maybe this is the wrong path. What's the opposite of that? What is the opposite of that? So what are we trying to achieve by getting rid of that? What's the opposite of that? It's faith. All we're trying to do is build our faith. And that's kind of crazy, because if you look at it in the scientific way with our subconscious programming, all we're trying to do is create faith that's in line with our purpose, and whatever we believe we need, and we have faith that it will happen, it will manifest into our life. It'll come to fruition. That's basically what the Bible says, like throughout the whole thing. Well, you ask and you shall receive, but you need to have faith, and you need to give thanks. You need to have that spiritual gratitude, because that's the key. That's the key to the connection. That spiritual gratitude. But what really, if you're not a religious person, what does that mean? That means you're at the highest level of vibration. That means you're at a peak emotional state without negativity. So you're telling your brain that I'm positive this is what we need. There's no doubt about it, which is faith. There's no doubt we need this in order to do this, which we have to do. And that place that we're going, there's no negative energy around it. We need that. This is my reality. And then it will align yourself with that target. So you can see that it can align yourself if money is your God, and you provide that same energy with money. You have that spiritual gratitude, hope, security, value, and connection, all fulfilled by money. You see why that would work as well. But it will bring you a false sense of fulfillment. And when it's too late, you realize you messed up. So don't mess up. Be fulfilled to the fullest and have abundance by doing it this way. And the last step, the last little hack, is unfortunately a lot of this negative energy creeps in because we believe we're not enough. We believe that we're not enough to have these things happen to us in our life. And that's a lot to do with the negative programming that's all around you. You're not enough. You're not enough. When in the Bible, God says, you are enough. I made you. You are enough. So the hack is to embody the person that you believe deserves that manifestation. Then there is no negative energy of undeserving, because you say, okay, this is the person that exists in order to receive that manifestation, and I am embodying it. I am becoming that person. I am one with that person. Now there's no excuse. You've got rid of all the negative energy, and you think you deserve it, and you have faith that it's going to happen. That's a clean line. That's a clean line to where you want to go, and that's how you manifest in your life. So it is a spiritual war. It's a spiritual war of really good and evil, even though people may not look at it that way.
but you can see the result is that way. Because when you start looking at people like sheep and you look and you believe that you have the power to make the sheep move in any direction that you want, then your idea of humanity, your idea of souls, your idea of people is tarnished. And with that tarnished framing of what humans are, evil is much easier to do. And people just don't care anymore. And people lose touch. And I honestly believe that a lot of the people at the top who have dedicated their lives to worshiping this evil, to gain the power, to gain the money, they started to realize it. But instead of trying to change themselves, they want to justify it by making everybody evil. I mean, look at the stuff that's happening. Just look at, we were just talking about this the other day. Look at the Oscars and look at some of the Best Picture nominations and who's winning Best Actresses, what they're doing in those movies. Like, it's literally the opposite of being biblical, which if you look at it that way, that means satanic in a way, right? We are putting degeneracy on a pedestal, making it okay, but why? Why? But think about it. Think about it now with this information. What does that mean? What's happening? Who's winning the war and who's not? This is a deep one, right? I mean, I got a lot of stuff off my chest and kind of organized my thoughts a little bit about this, but I never really talked about it in this light. I've always thought it. So if you guys want to connect with me, there's a link below. If you want to join a movement, and the movement, it's called Ascend to Elite, and it's really about achieving the elite status in the right way, not by worshiping evil, but by doing good, by following your purpose, following what you're meant to do, and aligning whatever you need in life with that. As long as you're fulfilling what you're supposed to do in here, you can manifest the life of your dreams. I honestly believe that. I've seen it happen. It's happened for me, and I want to share that with everybody. So if you want to experience that and you want to share with people, because I think this is the war, is shifting people from one side to the other. Because when it comes down to a war, the collateral damage is the sheep, the people that are in the middle. You will be eliminated, but who's going to win? Right? We need more troops on the right side. So click the link below if this kind of resonated with you. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Bye.